You up for it? One quick game, little lady? The words came from a tall, silver-haired man with sharp eyes and the kind of voice that people usually didn't ignore. Maya looked up from the battered chessboard in front of her, her small hands frozen over a bishop she was repositioning. She'd heard a lot of voices in her 12-year harsh ones, pitying ones that never even noticed she existed. But this one was different. Not soft, not mocking, curious. The man was in a charcoal gray hoodie and pressed khakis, standing with the casual poise of someone who owned more than he let on. Behind him, the oak trees of Oak Ridge Park swayed in the breeze, and early sunlight dappled the stone chess tables lined in a row. Maya had claimed her usual 1/3 from the fountain, the one with the chipped corner that caught her sleeve if she leaned too far. She tilted her chin, meeting his eyes. "Sure," she said, voice quiet but clear. "If you don't mind losing." The man raised an eyebrow and let out a dry chuckle. Confident. "I like that." He pulled out the iron chair across from her and sat down with the fluid ease of someone used to commanding boardrooms. "Name's Richard Monroe." Maya nodded, but offered no name in return. He tapped the edge of the board. "You always out here by yourself?" "Most days." "You live around here?" She hesitated. "Sort of." That answer seemed to amuse him. He gestured to the board. "White or black?" "You pick." He reached forward and moved a pawn. "Black it is." Maya didn't blink. Her hand shot forward, and the game began. 15 moves in, Richard leaned forward. He'd opened with a tried-and-true Caro-Can, intending to feel her out, expecting a few decent moves followed by a clumsy blunder. Instead, she countered with precise responses, her hands moving fast, without hesitation. She'd sacrificed a knight with a devilish trap that left his rook exposed. He frowned. "You study theory?" "Nope," she replied, sliding a bishop diagonally. "Just play a lot." "Online?" "Not really. No Wi-Fi where I stay." Richard sat back. His expression was unreadable. She watched him from beneath the shadow of her hoodie. Her eyes were sharp but calm, her posture relaxed. Every few seconds she glanced at the board, never at him. He moved his queen to threaten her king. She responded instantly, not only diffusing the threat but pivoting into an aggressive attack that left him 3 moves from defeat. A few turns later, she delivered checkmate. He blinked at the board, surprised not at the loss, but at how quickly it had happened. "Again," he said, sharper now. She shrugged. "Okay." This time, Richard played fast, aggressive, trying to throw her off. He used combinations that had crushed younger prodigies at tech conferences and board retreats. But Maya didn't flinch. Her fingers danced across the board, reading the flow of the game like a musician reading notes. She spotted traps before they were set. She planned a headway ahead. Checkmate. Again. "Damn," he muttered. "You're not just good, you're scary good." She smiled faintly, the first trace of amusement on her face. "Where'd you learn?" he asked, more curious than before. "Books. Watching games at the rec center. Sometimes people at shelters will let me sit in." You in school?" "Nope. Not since my aunt and I started moving around." Richard folded his arms, taking in her ragged clothes, the duct tape patch on her backpack, the way her shoes didn't match. She was clearly homeless, clearly poor, but there was something regal in the way she sat. Like she knew the world didn't expect much from her, and she didn't care. If Maya's story moved you, give this video a like to show your support. And drop a comment with where you're watching from. Who knows? Someone right near you might be watching this too. "Let me guess," he said. "You don't have a chess rating." "Nope." He leaned in. "I've played with champions, kid. I was ranked in my 20s. I know talent when I see it. You're the real deal." Maya shrugged again. He reached for his phone, thumbed a message to his driver. Then, to her, "I live about 15 minutes from here. Got a whole study full of chess books and some fancy boards. Want to come play a few games somewhere warm?" She narrowed her eyes. "Why?" He paused. "Because you just mopped the floor with me, twice, and I don't like unfinished business." Maya's mouth quirked slightly. "I don't stay places long. I'm not asking for forever, just 1 week." She didn't respond right away. Then, "Okay, but no fancy promises." "No promises," Richard agreed, standing. As they walked toward the park entrance, Richard glanced sideways at the girl beside him, the tiny frame, the steady gaze, the head held high despite the world pressing down. He didn't know what he was inviting into his home, but somewhere inside, he felt the ground shift. This girl, Maya, wasn't a project. She was a force. A quiet one, maybe, but the kind that changed everything. And so the game had only just begun. The car was sleek, black, and far too quiet. Maya sat in the back seat, her hands folded in her lap, eyes scanning everything. She didn't lean back. She didn't fidget. Just sat still, like a passenger on a ride she hadn't fully agreed to take. Richard Monroe sat beside her, watching her out of the corner of his eye. He said nothing during the ride, and she didn't ask questions. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was measured, cautious like two chess players considering their next move. When they pulled into the long, winding driveway, Maya leaned forward slightly. The house was big, not mansion big, but intimidating in its quiet elegance. Brick walls covered in ivy, tall, narrow windows. An American flag fluttered near the front porch, worn at the edges but hanging proud. The front door opened before they reached it. A man in his 60s, thin, bald, dressed in a crisp navy cardigan, stood with perfect posture. "Welcome back, Mr. Monroe." "Thanks, Hayes," Richard said. "We have a guest. She'll be staying in the East Wing for the week. Set her up however she likes." Hayes gave a brief nod to Maya, but his eyes lingered for half a second too long. Not unkind, just curious, maybe cautious. Inside, the house felt even larger. Hardwood floors, leather chairs, and shelves lined with thick books. The kind Maya used to sneak peeks at in the library before they closed for the night. The air smelled like cedarwood and old paper. Clean, but not warm. "This way," Hayes said, gesturing with a gloved hand. Maya followed without a word. The hallway stretched long and quiet, with tall ceilings and no sound, no television, no humming appliances, no music. She was used to noise, car alarms, buses, babies crying, sirens in the distance. This kind of silence made her shoulders tense. Hayes stopped at a door with a bronze plaque. "Study room, private." He opened it. The room took her breath, not because it was fancy, but because it was filled with chessboards. Dozens, each one different. Marble, wood, glass, a giant magnetic wallboard for analysis. Several trophies lined a shelf above a window seat, and in the center, a table with 2 chairs, already set for play. Richard stepped in behind her. "This is where I used to train with my daughter," he said, voice low. Maya glanced at him, but said nothing. "She passed a few years ago," he added. Then, clearing his throat, "You hungry?" Maya hesitated. "I could eat." Richard nodded at Hayes, who disappeared like a well-trained ghost. Maya took a slow lap around the room, touching nothing. Her eyes moved from piece to piece: ebony knight, ivory queen, a weathered wooden bishop with a chipped base. Every set had a story. "You can try any of them," Richard said. "Even the antique Russian set. But break one, and I'll have to sell your next 5 wins to cover it." She smirked. "You planning to lose 5 more games?" He gave a short laugh, and for a moment, the air felt lighter. They sat. The board between them was maple and mahogany, simple but elegant. He gestured to her. "Your move." She took black this time, quietly slid a pawn forward. Richard didn't try anything fancy. No traps. He played clean, steady. 20 moves in, he was 2 pieces down. 30 moves checkmate. Richard didn't slam the table, didn't groan. He simply sat back, looked at the ceiling, and sighed. "How many games do you win in a week?" he asked. Maya shrugged. "Don't play that often. Some people don't want to play with girls, or with people who look like me." Richard nodded, lips tightening. "People like me? Number. Not just rich, just sure of everything." Before he could respond, Hayes re-entered with a tray grilled cheese sandwiches, a bowl of tomato soup, and a glass of milk. Maya's eyes lit up for the first time since arriving. "This okay?" Hayes asked gently. She nodded quickly, took the plate with both hands. Richard watched her eat. She didn't wolf it down, didn't act like she'd never seen food, but every bite looked like it meant something, like it had to last. "How long you been on the road?" he asked. 2 years, she said between bites. "Me and Aunt Rachel. Been in 3 states. Here's the safest so far." "No parents?" She shook her head. "No school?" "Not since Fresno." He nodded, slowly. The air grew still again. After she finished, she leaned back and asked, "Why are you doing this?" "What?" "Letting me stay here, feeding me, playing with me." Richard paused, then spoke quietly. "Because you're the best chess player I've met in 30 years. And because I'm trying to figure out what that says about me." She stared at him a moment. Then, instead of answering, she asked, "You got a shower?" "End of the hall, on your left. Towels in the cabinet." "Thanks." As she walked out, Richard turned to Hayes. "Keep an eye on her, but don't crowd her." "Of course, sir. She's smart, quiet, but there's weight on her, the kind that doesn't come off easy." Hayes nodded thoughtfully. "She reminds me of someone." "Who?" "You," Richard snorted. "I was never that sharp at 12. "No," Hayes said, folding his hands. "But you were always playing to survive." Richard didn't reply. He stared at the board, still set with the final checkmate position. Outside, the sky was turning golden. Inside, the house wasn't quite as quiet anymore. Maya stood in the guest bathroom, water running warm over her arms. The steam fogged the mirror above the sink, hiding her reflection. She wasn't used to this kind of heat, constant, controllable, safe. It felt indulgent, dangerous, even, like something she could get used to, and shouldn't. She turned off the tap, dried her hands on a fluffy white towel, and stared at the room's tiled floor. No cracks, no bugs. No one pounding on the door to hurry up. Just silence and soft, white light. Back in the bedroom, her duffel bag lay on a bench at the foot of the bed. One shirt, one pair of extra socks, a paperback novel missing its cover, a crumpled photo of her and Aunt Rachel, arms wrapped around each other outside a gas station in Reno. Maya folded the towel, placed it neatly on the rack, and changed into her only clean clothes. When she emerged into the hallway, the scent of lemon polish and something faintly floral greeted her. The air felt heavier than before. Maybe it was the quiet again. Or maybe it was what came with it, expectation. She found Richard in the kitchen. He wasn't cooking Hayes was, but he was standing near the window, drinking black coffee from a white mug. "You sleep all right?" he asked without turning. "Didn't really sleep." He nodded slowly. "Takes time." Hayes placed a plate in front of her. Scrambled eggs, toast with butter, sliced oranges. Maya sat and began eating quietly. After a moment, she said, "Most places we stay, breakfast is powdered donuts or whatever they toss at the shelter." Well," Richard said, sipping, "consider this a first move in a longer game." She raised an eyebrow. "I don't play games I don't understand." He chuckled softly. "You play chess. That's nothing but a game of understanding the unknown." She didn't argue, just kept chewing. After breakfast, they returned to the study. Richard opened a cabinet and pulled out an old, dusty folder. "I dug this out last night," he said, placing it on the table. "My daughter's first tournament application. She was about your age." Maya glanced at it. A name was written in careful block letters at the top. Emily Monroe. "She loved the game," Richard said. "She wasn't as fast as you, but she had that same stillness, like nothing could shake her once she sat down." "What happened to her?" He hesitated, then answered, "Car accident, drunk driver." Maya nodded, not out of pity, just recognition. Loss was a language she understood. "She used to say that the board made sense in ways the world didn't," Richard continued. "I think that's what draws us in. All the rules are right there. You win or you don't. No excuses, no politics, no favorites." Maya's voice was quiet. "Until someone flips the board." He looked at her, surprised, then smiled grimly. "Yeah, sometimes that happens too." They played 3 games before noon. She won 2, he won 1 barely. He grunted after his narrow victory and sat back, massaging his wrist. "You ever compete formally?" he asked. She shook her head. "Too expensive. And we move too often. I used to sneak into the library in Oakland. They had this one guy, Mr. Benny, taught me openings when the staff weren't watching. He'd be proud." She shrugged. "He probably doesn't remember me." Richard leaned forward. "You ever want to play in a real tournament?" "Sure," she said. "But dreams don't ride buses." He smiled. "Well, mine used to, until I bought them a private jet." Maya chuckled for the first time short, soft, but real. That afternoon, he gave her a tour of the house. The east wing had 3 guest rooms, a small library, and a sunroom that looked out over a garden full of rosemary, thyme, and aging stone statues. The smell reminded her of the corner flower shops in Berkeley, where she and Aunt Rachel would steal glances at roses they couldn't afford. At one point, she paused by a photo on the wall. Richard, younger, arms around a woman, and a young girl, Emily. The girl's smile was wide, eyes bright, hair tied in a messy ponytail. Maya felt something twist in her chest. She looked down at her own shusscuff, with one untied lace flapping as she walked. "This house," she said suddenly, "it feels like a museum." Richard looked around. "I suppose it does. You don't talk much about now. Just about then." He looked at her, startled by her observation. Maya shrugged. "I notice things. That's how I win." That night, she found a blanket folded neatly at the foot of her bed with a note tucked under the pillow. "If you need anything, just ask. Hayes." She didn't ask. Instead, she sat by the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere in the distance, traffic murmured. But here, the world was still. Too still. She missed the hum of her aunt's old van, the rustle of sleeping bags, the sound of Aunt Rachel talking softly in her sleep. She held the photo from her bag in her hand, tracing their faces with her finger. "I'm not staying here forever," she whispered, "but I'll learn what I can." Then she turned off the light, lay back on the soft mattress, and closed her eyes. Somewhere in the quiet house, Richard stood at his office window, staring out at the same night sky. He sipped whiskey, slowly, and thought about the girl down the hall. Maya, quiet, brilliant, guarded. She wasn't his daughter. But maybe, just maybe, he'd been given one last game worth playing. The next morning, the chessboard was already set when Maya entered the study. Sunlight streamed in from the east-facing windows, casting gold across the polished table. Richard sat at his usual spot, coffee in hand, eyes distant. "You're up early," Maya said, dropping into her chair. "Couldn't sleep," he replied, moving a pawn forward without looking up. They played in silence for a while. The pieces clicked softly against the board. Outside, birds chirped, and a sprinkler hissed to life on the far lawn. "You think people can change?" Maya asked, after a particularly ruthless exchange of bishops. Richard looked up. "That depends. Are they changing for someone else, or for themselves?" She shrugged. "Guess I'm still figuring that out." He considered her for a moment. "Someone treating you different lately?" She didn't answer, but the way she stared at the board said enough. Richard took a slow sip of coffee. "People talk. That's one thing I've learned, especially when you don't fit their mold." Maya's jaw clenched. "The staff here, they smile, but I see their eyes, like I snuck in through the back door." "You didn't," he said firmly. "I know," she replied, "but they don't. They finished the game." Another win for her. Afterward, Hayes entered with a tablet in hand. "You have 2 messages flagged urgent, sir," he said to Richard. Richard waved him over. He skimmed the screen and sighed. "What is it?" Maya asked. "Word's getting out," he muttered. "A few of my old acquaintances caught wind of you. Someone at the club's been talking." She looked confused. "What club?" "San Mateo Chess Club. I haven't been active in years, but I'm still listed as honorary chairman. A few folks saw us in the park, recognized me. Now they want to know who you are." Maya frowned. "Why does it matter?" "Because the chess world is small, and they don't like surprises." That afternoon, Richard took her into town. Not in the black sedan this time, but in his old truckin' aging Ford with a sun-faded paint job and a dent in the rear bumper. "More low profile," he said with a grin. They drove to the edge of Palo Alto, to a quiet building with a faded green awning, Delgado's Books, and cafe. Inside, the smell of espresso, aged paper, and old varnish hung in the air like incense. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling. A couple of old-timers played checkers near the back. The owner, Mr. Delgado, looked up from the register. His eyes landed on Maya, then flicked to Richard. "You're early for Saturday coffee," he said. "Brought someone to meet the regulars," Richard replied. Delgado stepped out from behind the counter and extended a hand to Maya. "Welcome." She shook it, wary but polite. Within minutes, they were seated at a corner table with 2 large mugs of hot cocoa and a battered chessboard between them. Delgado watched Maya's fingers as she set up her side of the board, precise, confident. "You play a lot?" he asked casually. "Enough." They played 3 games. Maya won them all. By the end, a small group had gathered to watch old men in worn jackets, a college student in a beanie, a woman with silver braids who leaned over each move like it held a secret. "She's got vision," someone whispered. "Like a young Polgar," another murmured. Richard watched the buzz grow around her. Whispers, raised eyebrows. One man even recorded part of the final game on his phone. On the drive back, Maya stared out the window. "They'll start asking questions now," she said. "I know. They'll wonder where I came from. They'll make assumptions," Richard replied. "Some worse than others." She nodded. "I don't want to be a story." You already are," he said gently. "The question is, do you want to help tell it?" At the house, Hayes was waiting with another message. "Mr. Harold Quinn left a voicemail," he told Richard. "Wants to discuss recent developments in your household." Richard's expression darkened. "Harold never calls unless he smells blood in the water." "Who is he?" Maya asked. "Old rival. Chess investor. Big on image. Hates being surprised." What'll you tell him?" "I'll tell him the truth," Richard said. "That I met a kid who plays better than anyone he's ever funded." Maya gave a faint smile. "That might be fun." Later that evening, as the house settled into its usual quiet, Maya wandered the halls. She paused at a framed newspaper article, "Tech Titan sponsors chess tournament for inner-city youth." Richard stood beside his daughter in the photo, both smiling. Emily held a trophy nearly as tall as she was. Maya touched the edge of the frame. She didn't know Emily, but she felt her. Down the hall, Richard stood watching. He didn't speak, but his presence was calm, unjudging. "You really think I'm ready for what's coming?" she asked, not turning. "I don't think," he said. "I trust." And for the first time in a long time, Maya believed him. Not because he said it like a promise, but because he said it like a move already made on the board, and all she had to do was see it. The 4th morning began with rain. Not a storm, but a quiet, steady drizzle that made the world feel wrapped in cotton. Maya sat by the window in her guest room, knees pulled to her chest, chin resting on them. Outside, droplets ran down the glass like racing pawns, each one moving forward until it disappeared. A knock came. Hayes's voice followed. "Breakfast ready, Miss Maya." "Mr. Monroe's waiting." She answered with a muffled, "Okay," but stayed still for a moment longer. The calm felt heavy today, like it might break if she moved too fast. Downstairs, the dining room was unusually quiet. Richard sat with the paper open but unread, glasses perched low on his nose. A plate of eggs and toast steamed untouched in front of him. "Morning," Maya said, sliding into her seat. He looked up, offered a small smile. "Morning. You sleep all right?" She nodded. "You?" "Mostly." They ate in near silence. The only sounds were the clink of silverware and the distant patter of rain on the skylight. Finally, Richard set his fork down and leaned back. "So," he said, "your week's almost up." Maya paused, halfway through her toast. "I remember," she replied softly. He didn't push her, just watched, waiting for her next move. After a moment, she set the toast down carefully. "I said 1 week. That's what I meant. I didn't forget. But I'm hoping you'll consider an extension." Maya shook her head slowly. "That's not how we do things. Me and Aunt Rachel, we don't stay. People start thinking we owe them something." "I'm not asking for anything." "You don't have to," she said. "Staying changes the way people look at you. Like you're not just passing through, like you belong. And then they expect you to act like them." He was quiet a moment. "Belonging isn't a weakness, Maya. It is when people take it away." Richard looked down at his hands. Then softly, "You remind me of Emily more than I expected." Maya's gaze flickered. "You don't talk much about her." He nodded. "Hurts less when you keep it quiet." She understood that. Grief had its own language, and silence was the most fluent speaker. That afternoon, they played 2 games. One ended in a draw, the other in another narrow win for Maya. Richard had stopped expecting to win, but he never stopped trying. That, she respected. Later, as Hayes drove them to a chess exhibition across town, Maya stared out the window, her breath fogging the glass. "You nervous?" Richard asked. "Not really. But people watch different when you don't look like them. He nodded. Then give them something to remember. The venue was a modest auditorium attached to a community college. Inside, long rows of tables stretched across the floor, each one set with a board, clock, and 2 chairs. The players were a mix of ages, mostly teenagers in polo shirts and name tags. A few adults stood by with clipboards. When Maya and Richard entered, heads turned. "Is that Monroe?" someone whispered. "Who's the kid? Where's her badge?" One of the coordinators approached, a short man with wireframe glasses and a slightly forced smile. "Mr. Monroe, good to see you again. I wasn't aware you were sponsoring a player this year." "Wasn't planning to," Richard said, "but I make exceptions." The man's eyes moved to Maya. He forced another smile. "We weren't expecting outside entries. Most of our students are part of the league." "She's not here to disrupt," Richard said calmly. "She's here to learn, and maybe teach." The man hesitated, then waved them toward an empty board at the far end. "1 game. Exhibition only." Maya took her seat, calm as always. Her opponent was a boy in a navy sweater with an embroidered chess club logo. He was 14, maybe 15, with a practiced smirk and a handshake that tried to intimidate. Maya didn't flinch. The game began. 5 moves in, the boy's smirk faded. 10 moves, and he began glancing nervously at the clock. 15, and his hand hovered too long over each piece. By move 25, the room was watching. Checkmate. Silence. Then someone clapped. Then another. It spread like ripples across a lake. A few people murmured. Some took photos. The boy stood stiffly, nodded once, and walked away. Richard stepped forward, pride quietly resting in his eyes. Maya stood, adjusted her hoodie, and met the gaze of the crowd. "She's not ranked," someone muttered. "She should be." That night, back at the house, Maya sat on the porch while the rain finally stopped. The scent of wet earth and lavender drifted on the breeze. Richard joined her with 2 mugs of cocoa. "You sure you want to leave tomorrow?" he asked. She didn't answer immediately. Then, "It's not about wanting. I could help. Get you registered. Find Aunt Rachel. Set up something stable." She looked at him. "You think giving someone a bed and a title makes them safe? I think it gives them a chance." She took a long sip of cocoa. "You can't always bet on chances. Some of us only play the games we know how to lose gracefully." He watched her for a while, then said quietly, "Well, this house has plenty of games left to play, if you ever decide to stay." Maya didn't reply, but when she finished her cocoa, she placed the empty mug on the porch rail, carefully aligned with his. For a girl used to leaving, it was the closest thing she'd given to a yes. Sunday morning arrived quiet and blue, the kind of soft light that made the world look gentler than it really was. Maya stood barefoot in the kitchen, flipping through an old chess strategy book Richard had left on the counter. The pages smelled like dust and ambition. Hayes moved about silently, preparing coffee and humming something classical under his breath. "She's still here," he said quietly, not to her, but to himself, like an observation noted for the record. Maya looked up. "You expecting me to leave without breakfast?" "No, Miss Maya," Hayes replied, offering a rare smile. "Just noting the day's blessing." She returned the smile faintly, then turned another page. Richard entered moments later, rubbing his eyes and waving away the coffee. "Phone's been buzzing since 6, he muttered. "Should have known letting the kid beat the pants off a league player would make waves." "What happened?" Maya asked. "A video. From the exhibition. Someone uploaded it. It's spreading." She blinked. "Already?" "Already," he confirmed. "Chess blogs are dissecting your endgame like it's a Cold War artifact." "Let them." Hayes cleared his throat. "Sir, there's someone waiting outside. Says she's family." Richard tensed. "What?" Hayes nodded toward the entry. Woman, early 40s, denim jacket, boots, voice like gravel. She wouldn't come in. Maya froze. Richard looked at her. "That your aunt?" Maya didn't answer immediately. Then, "Yeah." Richard stood, motioned to her. "Come on, let's hear what she has to say." Outside, the woman stood at the edge of the driveway, arms crossed, a cigarette smoldering between her fingers. Her eyes were hard, but when they saw Maya, they softened just enough to fracture the mask. "Maya." Maya stepped forward. "Hi, Aunt Rachel." Rachel crushed the cigarette underfoot. "Didn't think I'd find you this quick." But someone sent me a link. Thought I was seeing things. You were. Rachel's mouth twitched at the joke. You all right? Maya nodded. Rachel turned to Richard. You the guy? The chess man? I am. Thought you'd be taller. Richard smiled politely. Thought you'd be less skeptical. Rachel crossed her arms tighter. I got reason to be. My niece disappears for a week. And next thing I know, she's a viral sensation in some millionaire's mansion. She didn't disappear, Richard said evenly. She played a game in the park. I invited her to stay. Nothing more, nothing less. Rachel looked at Maya. And you just went with him? Maya met her aunt's gaze. I needed to see what I could be. Rachel's face twisted pain, pride, worry all at once. You are what you are, Maya. You don't need a mansion to prove it. But I needed a board, Maya said quietly. Rachel stepped closer. You ready to go? Maya's fingers curled slightly. I said 1 week. I didn't come to drag you away. I came to make sure you're whole. Richard stepped back, giving them space. Maya looked down at the gravel drive. They want me to register for tournaments. Get ranked. Rachel exhaled, slow and rough. You sure you want that? Number. But I don't want to be afraid of it either. Rachel rubbed the back of her neck. I don't got much, Maya, but I always tried to keep you safe. I know. You come with me, this ends. All the press, the training, the noise. You stay. I don't know what happens next. Maya turned to Richard. What happens next? He didn't answer right away. Then, pressure, expectations, people calling you a fraud, others calling you a prodigy, some asking where you came from, others asking why you matter. Maya nodded. But the board doesn't ask any of that. No, he said. It just plays. Rachel sighed. God, you sound like him now. Maya smiled. He's not so bad. They stood there for a long time, the three of them caught in a triangle of choices. Finally, Rachel reached into her jacket, pulled out a folded photo worn, faded. Just don't forget where you started, she said, pressing it into Maya's hand. Maya looked at Ither, age 6, sitting on Rachel's lap in the back of their van, holding a cereal box as a makeshift trophy. I won with a queenside rook rush, she said softly. I remember, Rachel replied. You scared that old man into knocking over his soda. They both laughed. I'm gonna stay, Maya said, voice steady. Rachel nodded slowly. Then I'll be nearby. Just not far. Always. Oh. She turned to Richard. You take care of her. I will. No, Rachel said, holding his gaze. I mean really take care. Not like a project. Not like a story. Like a kid with a whole life ahead. I understand. Rachel gave Maya one last look, then walked down the driveway, boots crunching gravel, denim flapping in the breeze. She didn't look back. Richard and Maya stood side by side, the photo still in her hand. You okay? He asked. I think so. Want to play? She nodded. Yeah, let's play. And as they headed back inside, the clouds began to break, letting a single shaft of sunlight stretch across the chessboard waiting in the study. By midweek, the calls had doubled. Richard's phone vibrated so often, it became part of the background noise. Offers from agents, emails from chess federations, invitations to interviews. A radio show even offered to fly Maya to New York to sit in on a segment titled The Street Prodigy. Maya ignored all of it. Every morning, she woke early. She read, she played, she listened. She helped Hayes fold laundry, not because she had to, but because she liked the rhythm of it. She walked the garden path with quiet steps, and every evening, she sat across from Richard, studying the board between them like it held the future. She didn't ask for more time. She didn't ask for less. She just stayed. On Thursday morning, Richard handed her a small envelope with her name written in blue ink. Inside was a letter from the U.S. Junior Chess Association, an invitation to compete, all expenses covered, sponsorship likely. Maya read it twice, then set it aside without comment. You're allowed to be excited, Richard said gently. I am, she replied. I just don't want to need it too much. He leaned back, sipping his tea. That's wisdom you shouldn't have at your age. It's not wisdom, Maya said. It's defense. That afternoon, while she was walking the library hall, a voice startled her. Well, you're shorter than I expected. She turned to see a woman in a sleek gray suit. glasses resting low on her nose, clipboard tucked beneath one arm. She had the kind of smile that was too precise to be warm. "I'm Vanessa Cole," the woman said, "media liaison for the West Coast Chess Alliance." Maya blinked. "I didn't request a liaison." "Of course not. Mr. Monroe did." Richard appeared just behind Maya, his tone flat. "I said you could visit. I didn't say you could corner her." Vanessa laughed lightly. "Forgive me. I was just eager to meet the young woman causing such a stir." Maya watched them carefully. She saw the way Vanessa's eyes lingered on her hoodie, her posture, her shoes, measuring, weighing. "I'm not a product," Maya said suddenly. Vanessa turned back to her. "No, of course not. You're a brand." Richard cut in. "Let's make something clear. Maya isn't here for promotion. She's here because she's earned it." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Even brands with talent need polish." Maya stepped forward. "You think I need fixing?" Vanessa's smile froze. "Number, but people prefer stories with clean edges." "Well," Maya said, voice calm but firm, "I'm not here to make people comfortable. I'm here to win." Richard smiled. Vanessa gave a polite nod, but her eyes had cooled. "We'll be in touch." After she left, Maya turned to Richard. "Is this how it's going to be?" "Sometimes," he said, "but you don't have to let them shape you. You can shape them." That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She sat in the study with a single lamp glowing. The chessboard lay in front of her, but the pieces weren't set. Instead, she stared at the empty squares. Hayes walked in with a soft knock, carrying a small tray milk and a piece of apple pie. "You looked like someone who forgot dessert," he said, setting it beside her. Maya smiled weakly. "Thanks." He didn't leave right away, just stood by the shelf, watching her. "You know," he said, "Mr. Monroe used to play here every night, even after his daughter passed, alone, talking to no one." Maya looked up. "He lost more than a daughter that day," Hayes continued. "He lost the part of himself that believed in the future." She was quiet a long moment. Then, "Do you think he's getting it back?" Hayes smiled. "I think he's watching it grow across the table." When he left, she set the pieces slowly, deliberately, one by one. Not to play, but to see them again. The knights, the bishops, the lone king, and the pawns. That night, before bed, she stood at the window and whispered to the dark, "I don't want to just survive anymore." In another room, Richard sat in his office, staring at an old tournament photo of Emily. His hand hovered over his phone. Then, slowly, he dialed. When the voice answered, he said only, "She's ready, but I want this done on her terms. No cameras, no sponsorships, just a board, a clock, and a fair match." Then he hung up. Outside, the wind picked up, the first cold breath of a coming season. But inside the house, something had settled. Not peace exactly, but clarity. They were no longer playing for curiosity. They were playing for legacy. Friday morning dawned with a sharp chill in the air, the kind that hinted at fall's approach. Maya stood in the kitchen in her socks, holding a mug of tea Hayes had prepared with honey and lemon. She watched the sunlight slant across the marble counters, cutting pale gold lines between shadows. Richard entered, coat already on, expression unreadable. "We have somewhere to be," he said simply. Maya set her mug down. "Is this about the match?" He nodded. "I made a call last night." They agreed. Quiet setting. No press. Just the board and a few respected eyes. Maya's gaze held his. "Who am I playing?" "Harold Quinn's protégé. A boy named Lane Avery." Maya didn't flinch, but her grip tightened slightly. Lane Avery. She'd read about him, a rising star in the junior circuit. Private coach. Grandmaster mentorships. His photo had shown up on the cover of Chess Today 2 months back with the headline, "The Future of American Strategy." "And they think I'm a fluke," she said. "They don't know you. That's different." They drove in silence through the city, then out into the hills where the roads wound between oak trees and dry grass. The venue was a private, cluebold brick, black wrought iron gate, the kind of place where whispers carried farther than shouts. Inside, they were led to a quiet room with tall ceilings and red velvet chairs lining the walls. A long table sat in the center, lit by a vintage chandelier, a single board, 2 chairs. Lane Avery was already seated. He wore a navy blazer and a pin with the USCF logo. His hair was perfectly combed, and he didn't look up when they entered. He was setting up his side of the board with practiced precision. Maya stepped forward without hesitation. She wore her hoodie, clean jeans, and sneakers that had seen better days. No pin, no blazer. But when she sat, she owned the space. "Name?" asked the arbiter, a woman in her 60s with sharp glasses and an expression of quiet authority. "Maya," she said. "No last name? Just Maya." The arbiter blinked, then wrote it down without comment. Color was drawn earlier. "Maya, you're white. Lane, black." Lane finally looked up. His eyes flicked over Maya like she was a puzzle with one piece missing. "Good luck," he said, voice even. "You'll need it," she replied. The room went still. The match began. Maya opened with a queen's gambit. Lane responded conservatively, defending early, trying to read her rhythm. But she didn't play with rhythm. She played with pressure. Each move was a question he couldn't fully answer. By move 12, his left rook was cornered. By move 20, he'd burned through half his clock. Spectatorsalent, professional, scattered along the walls began to murmur. Richard stood near the back, arms crossed, face unreadable. Lane adjusted his tie, eyes narrowing. He launched a sharp attack on Maya's king side, sacrificing a knight for positional advantage. Maya leaned forward, reading the flow like a story already half told. She blocked with her bishop, countered with a rook slide, and launched her own offensive across the queen side. Lane's brow furrowed. His fingers tapped the table once, then twice. He looked up at her for the first time during the game, really looked. "You studied me?" he asked under his breath. "No," Maya whispered back. "I studied the board." Move 35. Lane's queen was trapped. He tried a desperate knight fork, but she was already 3 steps ahead. The room grew tighter with every move. Then, checkmate. It came without warning. Elegant, final, quiet. The room exhaled. Lane sat frozen for a second. Then, slowly, he extended his hand. "Well played." Maya shook it. "Thanks." The arbiter marked the results. No applause, no flashing cameras, just a board, reset for the next match that would never come. As they left, Harold Quinn himself appeared at the dordle, silver-haired and stiff-jawed. "So you're the girl," he said, eyes cold. Maya met his gaze. "You were expecting someone else?" Quinn's jaw twitched. "You embarrassed one of my best." Richard stepped beside her. "She didn't embarrass him, she taught him." Quinn sneered. "She's a street story. The world eats those up until they burn out." Maya stepped forward. "Maybe, or maybe I'm a reminder that talent doesn't ask for permission." They left without another word. That night, back at the house, Richard brought out an old bottle of scotch. He poured 1 glass for himself and a mug of cocoa for Maya. "You know what you did today?" he asked. "I won." He smiled. "Yes, but more than that, you shifted the game." She sipped her cocoa. "Feels the same. Board pieces, just a little quieter." He lifted his glass. "To the quiet ones who change everything." She clinked her mug against his. "To the ones who don't wait to be invited." Outside, a breeze carried the scent of pine and smoke. Somewhere in the city, names were being rewritten, and somewhere inside a quiet girl in a quiet house, a legacy had begun. The house felt different after the match. Not louder, Maya still preferred silence, but fuller, as if the walls themselves had absorbed the energy of what she'd accomplished. Hayes polished the furniture with a faint hum to his tune, and even the garden seemed to stand taller, as if the rosemary bushes had been listening too. But Maya didn't celebrate. Instead, she moved through the halls with the same quiet purpose. Reviewing games in her head, dissecting every move Lane Avery had mad not out of doubt, but out of discipline. Winning wasn't the end. It was just a door. On Saturday morning, Richard received a letter in a heavy cream envelope sealed with wax. He opened it at the breakfast table, glanced once at Maya, then slid it across to her without a word. She opened it carefully. "Dear Miss Maya, you are cordially invited to participate in the West Coast Invitational Youth Championship, to be held in San Francisco on the 14th of October. Your recent performance has attracted the attention of our National Advisory Board. We are eager to witness your continued development on the official circuit. Travel, lodging, and registration will be provided. Sincerely, Dr. Lillian Green, Tournament Director. Maya set the letter down and looked out the window. The fog outside curled around the hedges like fingers. It's official now, she said softly. Richard nodded. It's your call. She didn't answer right away. She stood, walked to the study, and stared at the old wallboard, still marked with the final sequence from her match with Lane. I didn't think it would happen this fast, she said when Richard joined her. It happens fast when the world's been waiting, he replied, even if you didn't know it. But it's not just about chess now. They'll want interviews, sponsors, trainers. They'll want to mold you. And you? He shook his head. I'm not here to mold. I'm here to make sure you don't forget who you are while they try. She turned toward him, voice firm. Then I want to go, but I want Rachel there too. He smiled. I figured you might. That afternoon, Richard called Rachel. She answered after the first ring. She wants you at the tournament, he said. Rachel was quiet a moment. Then, of course she does. I'll be there. On Sunday, Maya and Richard took a walk through the neighborhood. No fancy cars, no security, just two people walking like any neighbors might. A few kids on bikes passed by, some slowing to look at Maya, whispers trailing in their wake. That's her, one boy murmured. From the video. Maya didn't flinch, but Richard noticed the way she held her shoulders tighter. You don't have to smile, he said. Not if it doesn't feel right. She nodded. I just don't want to become someone I wouldn't recognize. They stopped at a small bookstore, where the owner recognized Richard immediately. She looked at Maya, then smiled. Heard about the match. You're making waves, young lady. Maya gave a small nod. Still just learning. That's the best place to be, the owner replied. It means you're still growing. That night, Richard found Maya sitting on the floor of the library, surrounded by old scorebooks. You know, he said, when Emily was your age, she once played a game blindfolded, against two opponents, just to prove to herself she could. Maya looked up. Did she win? She drew one, lost the other. And how did she take it? She laughed. Said it proved she still had things to learn. Maya smiled. I'd like her, wouldn't I? I think she'd love you. They spent the evening analyzing a 1,972 Fischer-Spassky match, Maya pointing out positional errors most adults missed. Richard barely spoke, content to let her narrate the moves with a quiet confidence that had grown stronger every day. Later, just before bed, Maya found Hayes in the kitchen, preparing tea. Do you believe in signs? She asked him. Hayes raised an eyebrow. Signs? Like, maybe this is happening for a reason. Hayes stirred the tea gently. I believe in hard work, and people showing up when it matters. If there's a sign in that, then sure I believe. She nodded, took the tea, and sat in the corner of the sunroom, watching the stars slowly break through the thinning fog. Somewhere out there was San Francisco, the tournament, the next challenge. But here, for one more night, she was just Maya. No last name, no brand, just a girl who could see 37 moves ahead and finally believed in the one that came next. The air in San Francisco carried a kind of urgent Cybrisk, brisker than Palo Alto's golden hush. It smelled of ocean wind, exhaust, and too many coffee shops packed into too few blocks. Maya watched the skyline blur through the back window of the car as Richard's driver navigated the downtown streets. Rachel sat beside her, arms crossed, wearing her leather jacket like armor. Haven't been in the city in years, she muttered, watching the crowds. Still smells like ambition and old pretzels. Maya smiled. That's oddly specific. Rachel grinned. Specific's all I got. The hotel was old money, elegant plush carpeting, brass elevators, and a concierge who addressed Maya as Miss Monroe, assuming a surname that wasn't hers. She didn't correct him. The tournament was being held at the Civic Auditorium 3 blocks away, a towering structure of marble columns and echoing halls. Hundreds of players from around the country were checking in when they arrived, kids in button-downs and sweatshirts, girls in dresses and jeans, coaches hovering like bees over their hive. Maya registered under the name Maya R. The clerk looked at her curiously. No full name? She tilted her head. You need one to play? The clerk shrugged. Guess not. Her first match was scheduled for the following morning. That left one day to acclimate. observe, prepare. Richard booked them a quiet corner suite on the 11th floor. He and Rachel set up a fold-out board on the table near the window. That evening, Maya watched footage of past winners. She studied their hand show. They moved pieces, adjusted clocks, scratched their noses during tension. She wasn't interested in their strategies yet, just their rhythms. Later, she wandered alone through the hotel lobby, moving unnoticed among the chatter of other players and their families. In a corner, she saw a boy around her age sitting cross-legged on a bench, a portable board on his lap. "Playing yourself?" she asked. He looked up. "Yeah, helps me sleep." "You win?" He grinned. "Depends which side I'm rooting for." She sat beside him, glanced at the board. It was mid-game, equal position. "You forgot your queenside bishop." He blinked. "You play?" She extended a hand. "Maya." He shook it. "Elia, from Portland." "You here to win?" He snorted. "I'm here to not lose in the first round." "You aiming low?" "I'm aiming honest." They talked for 20 minutes about openings, funny tournament stories, and which snacks should be banned during matches. For the first time since arriving, Maya felt a quiet kind of joy that came without needing to prove anything. Back upstairs, Richard and Rachel were deep in discussion when she returned. "She needs calm before this," Rachel was saying. "Don't turn this into another media zoo." I've kept the press off her," Richard replied. "You think I don't know what she needs? You're not her father. I never claimed to be." Maya cleared her throat at the door. Both turned quickly. "I'm going to bed," she said. "Just wanted to say thanks for being here, both of you." Rachel's face softened. "Always, baby." The next morning, the tournament hall was a sea of noise and nerves. Clocks ticked. Announcements echoed overhead. Tables were arranged in long rows, each one hosting a silent war. Maya found her table, board 19. Her opponent was a boy from Chicago, neat haircut, a nervous cough. They shook hands without words. The arbiter gave the nod. The clock started. She opened with the London system, her moves fluid, unhurried. Her opponent countered clumsily, unsure. By move 15, she had him cornered on tempo. By move 23, he resigned quietly. No applause, no celebration, just another number on the bracket. Round 2 followed after a short break. A girl this time, fiery, aggressive, fast. Maya loved it. They danced through a Sicilian defense that had Richard and Rachel pacing near the door. On move 30, Maya offered a draw. The girl refused. 2 moves later, checkmate. That evening, back at the hotel, Rachel massaged Maya's shoulders gently while Richard reviewed her clock times. "You're fast," he muttered, "but not reckless. That's rare." Maya shrugged. "I've been running my whole life. Guess I just brought it to the board." Rachel smiled. "You don't run anymore. You walk in like the storm." Outside, San Francisco sparkled beneath the stars. Cable cars hummed, horns honked. But in that high hotel room, Maya sat quietly between the two people who knew her best. "Tomorrow's the final," Richard said softly. "I know," Maya replied. "And I'm not playing to prove anything anymore." Rachel looked at her. "Then why?" Maya's voice was calm. "Because it's time someone like me wasn't the exception." No one spoke after that. They didn't need to. The game had changed, and Maya was ready to meet it. The final day of the West Coast Invitational arrived with a crisp clarity that seemed to sharpen everything: the sunlight, the air, even the thoughts running through Maya's mind. She woke early, before dawn, the city still cloaked in fog and quiet. Her hands itched to move pieces, but she didn't reach for the board. Not yet. Instead, she stood at the hotel window and watched the first light rise over San Francisco, bathing the rooftops in gold. Behind her, the soft rhythm of Rachel's breathing filled the suite. Richard had left a note on the table. "Meet me downstairs when you're ready. Calm mind, sharp eyes." By 7:45, she stepped into the lobby dressed in what had become her uniform: simple jeans, sneakers, and her favorite charcoal hoodie. She didn't need a new look. She needed focus. Richard was waiting near the exit, hands in his coat pockets, Hayes standing beside him like a shadow. "You slept?" Richard asked. "A little." "Eat?" "Enough." He nodded. "Then let's go." The tournament hall was already buzzing. Spectators filled the back rows, whispering over their programs. Coaches circled like hawks. Players paced like boxers. The final table stood at the front, set apart under a single light. 2 chairs, 1 board, a clock between them like a silent referee. Maya approached without hesitation. Her opponent was already seated. It was Elijah. He looked up, surprised for only a second. Then he grinned. "Well, I guess neither of us lost in the first round." Maya smiled genuinely. "Guess not." They shook hands. No tension between them, just mutual respect, 2 minds ready to meet at center. The arbiter stepped forward. "Final match. Standard timing. No outside communication. When you're ready." They nodded. The clock began. Elijah opened with a Rui Lopez. Maya recognized the trap within the first 3 moves. He was testing her. She countered with a flexible defense, delaying commitment, watching how he adjusted. Move after move, they built a castle of strategy, each block placed with care. The crowd leaned in. Richard didn't speak, but Rachel whispered prayers under her breath, not to God exactly, but to every ancestor who ever played a quiet game under pressure. By move 20, Maya felt it. The flow. That rare silence between moments when instinct took over and thought slipped away. Her hand moved before she consciously decided. She saw angles like lightning. Her knights danced, her pawns pushed like purpose. But Elijah wasn't folding. He pressed back hard, sacrificing tempo for control, launching a bishop attack that forced her to retreat. For the first time in the tournament, Maya felt cornered. She adjusted, breathed, focused. Her queen slid diagonally across the board, a quiet threat. Elijah blocked. She rotated her rook. He countered. The clock ticked, the air thickened. And then move 33. Elijah hesitated. Too long. He blinked, looked up, then smiled, the kind of smile that acknowledged defeat without bitterness. "I didn't see it," he whispered. Maya didn't respond. She made her final move. Checkmate. The room exhaled. The arbiter stepped forward. "Winner, Maya R." Applause followed, soft at first, then swelling like a tide. But Maya barely heard it. She reached across the board and shook Elijah's hand firmly. "That was the hardest game I've played," she said. "You made it easy to try," he replied. Reporters snapped photos from the perimeter. Tournament officials offered handshakes and congratulations. Maya took it all in with a quiet grace. But her eyes kept drifting toward Richard and Rachel standing near the back, pride written plainly across their faces. A microphone was offered. "Maya, do you want to say something to the crowd?" She hesitated, then stepped forward, her voice clear, steady. "I didn't come here to prove I belong. I already knew that. I came to remind everyone else that kids like me are already here, waiting, watching, learning, and we don't need saving. Just a seat at the table." Silence followed. Then thunderous applause. That evening, back at the hotel, the suite buzzed with soft celebration. Room service brought cake. Rachel played old soul records. Richard toasted with sparkling cider. Maya sat at the window again, trophy beside her, the city glowing below. Rachel came over, wrapped an arm around her. "You did it, baby." Maya leaned into her. Not alone. Richard joined them, glass in hand. "You know, after Emily passed, I didn't think I'd ever see this day. But today wasn't about my past. It was about your future." Maya looked at both of them. "What if this is just the start?" Richard smiled. "Then we build from here." Outside, the fog began to lift. And in that hotel room, under the quiet hum of a city still unfolding, Maya finally allowed herself to believe in tomorrow, not just as a hope but as a plan. The return to Palo Alto was quiet, almost meditative. The highway hummed beneath the tires like a lullaby. Maya sat in the back seat, head leaned against the window, trophy on her lap. Rachel had dozed off beside her, arms crossed, sunglasses shielding her tired eyes. Richard drove in silence, the radio off, the world giving them space to settle into this new chapter. Maya's thoughts weren't on the tournament anymore. They drifted instead to what would come next, the letters that would arrive, the calls, the new expectations. For a moment, it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, the wind pushing against her back. When they pulled up to Richard's house, the garden seemed brighter, the hedges more trimmed than usual. Hayes met them at the door, offering Maya a rare wide smile and a quiet, "Welcome home." Home. She blinked at the word. Let it sit. That evening, after dinner, Maya stood in the study where everything had started. The chessboard was untouched since the morning they'd left. Sunlight slanted in from the windows, landing directly on the black king piece left standing alone. Richard stepped into the room, leaning against the doorframe. "You've been quiet. I've been thinking." "About?" "My name." He nodded, waited. "I don't mean just Maya. I mean the rest of it. You don't use it. Because people don't say it right," she said. "Or they twist it. Or they ask where it comes from before they ask who I am." He stepped forward slowly. "Would you like to tell me?" She took a breath. "Maya Roslyn Pierce." "Pierce," he repeated softly. "That's a good name. It was my mom's, before she passed." Richard sat across from her. "Tell me about her." So she did. Bit by bit, Maya unpacked her memories, the smell of jasmine on her mother's coat, the way she used to hum old Billie Holiday tunes while washing dishes, the chess set she kept hidden under the bed like a secret gift for a day Maya didn't know was coming. "She never got to see me play," Maya whispered. Richard placed a hand over hers. "But she's seen every move since." Later that night, Richard made a call. The next morning, a man in a gray suit arrived from the local registrar's office with a clipboard and a kind expression. "We're filing official documentation," Richard explained. "Tournament records, school registrations, everything." The man looked at Maya. "And how would you like your name listed, miss?" She didn't hesitate. "Maya Roslyn Pierce." The man nodded, wrote it carefully. After he left, Maya walked into the garden. Rachel was pruning a rosemary bush with slow, deliberate movements. She looked up when Maya approached. "I told them," Maya said. "Told them what?" "My name." Rachel smiled. "It's a strong one. I'm keeping it. I hoped you would." They stood there for a while, shoulder to shoulder, surrounded by the scent of sun-warmed herbs and the distant sound of wind chimes. The next few days moved quickly. Letters from tournament boards arrived with invitations. Chess magazines requested interviews. A small local school offered her a full scholarship, no questions asked. But Maya turned most of them down. She wanted time to learn, to live, to grow without cameras in her face or microphones beneath her breath. She started attending weekly matches at a nearby community center, not as a prodigy, but as a peer. She played older men, young girls, nervous teens. She lost a few games. She won most. But she always listened more than she spoke. One evening, during a post-match review, a girl around 9 asked, "Are you the Maya from the internet?" Maya paused, then nodded. "That's me. Do you ever get nervous?" "Sometimes. But you don't look nervous." "That's the trick," Maya whispered with a grin. "You learn to look calm until you are." Rachel began teaching a youth writing workshop at the same center. Richard volunteered to coach a junior chess team once a week. Maya sat in on both, quiet, observant, always learning. One Saturday, a letter arrived from the National Chess Federation, a new invitation, not for a match, but to join their youth advisory board. Maya brought it to Richard. "They want me to help shape what comes next." He read it twice. "They finally realized you're not just playing the game. I'm rewriting it." He smiled. "What will you say?" "I'll say yes, but only if they listen." And they did. Over the next few months, Maya became a quiet force behind the scenes advocating for underserved kids, helping establish community tournaments in neighborhoods that had never hosted a chessboard before. She traveled occasionally, always with Rachel or Richard close by, always grounded. And every time someone asked her name, she answered clearly, "Maya Roslyn Pierce," because she had earned it. Every syllable, every step, every square. It was a late autumn afternoon, the kind that draped golden light over everything and made the world feel softer, as if holding its breath. Maya sat curled in the window seat of Richard's study, reading a book on unconventional chess openings. Her eyes flicked from diagram to diagram, absorbing strategy like oxygen. Outside, the garden had turned a rich amber. Leaves rustled, and haze could be seen gathering them into slow, methodical piles. The knock at the front door was gentle, but firm. Hayes opened it, paused, then called out, "Mr. Monroe, there's someone here. Says he's looking for Maya." Richard emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands. Who is it? Hayes hesitated. He wouldn't give a name. Says she'll know. Richard's eyes narrowed. He walked to the door, stepped outside. Maya watched from the hallway, unseen. A man stood by the steps, late 30s, lean. A beard that didn't quite mask the scars under his eyes. He wore a canvas jacket, dust on his boots. When he looked up, Maya's heart dropped. She knew that face. Uncle Léon. Richard kept his voice calm. May I help you? I need to see my niece. Richard's shoulders squared. She's not a visitor here. She lives here now. Everything goes through me. The man exhaled slowly. Tell her Leon's here. Maya stepped forward. Her voice was barely above a whisper. It's okay, Richard. I'll talk to him. Richard glanced back. You sure? She nodded, eyes never leaving Leon's face. They stepped into the garden, just far enough for privacy. Leon rubbed his hands together, avoiding her gaze. You look taller. I am, she said flatly. And cleaner. He winced. Look, I ain't here to fight. I heard about what you did, the tournament, all of it. It's all over the chess blogs. You read blogs now? I read about my family. Maya crossed her arms. Since when? He sighed, sat down on a garden bench. Since I realized I messed up. That took you how long? A year? 2? I came to say sorry. Maya didn't speak. He kept going. I was angry after your mom passed. Lost, maybe. I didn't know how to raise a kid, let alone one smarter than I'll ever be. So I ran. But I never stopped thinking about you. You left me sleeping in a van, Leon. He winced again. I know. They sat in silence, the breeze whispering through the trees. Finally, he pulled something from his jacket, a folded letter, edges worn. I found this. Was your mom's. She wrote it to you. Never got to give it to you. Maya hesitated, then reached out slowly. She unfolded the paper. Her mother's handwriting leapt off the page like music. My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, it means the world's taken a turn I didn't plan for. But know this, you are the strongest thing I ever made. Don't let the world shrink you. Don't let any no matter how kind or cruel decide your worth. Play your game, walk your path. And when it gets hard, remember, queens don't wait for permission. I love you. Always. Mom. Maya's throat tightened. She folded the letter carefully and placed it in her hoodie pocket. Leon stood. I'm staying in town a bit, working construction outside Redwood City. I don't expect anything, just thought you should have that. She didn't reply. As he walked away, Maya called after him. If I ever see you again, Leon, it better not be because you want something. He turned. What if I just want to be better? She looked at him for a long beat, then nodded once. Then prove it. That night, she sat at the kitchen table with Rachel and Richard, the letter between them. Rachel read it aloud again, slower this time, stopping to breathe at the end. She knew, Rachel whispered. That girl could always see ahead. Richard looked at Maya. What will you do now? I'll keep going. For her. For me. And Leon? I don't know, Maya said. Maybe some people come back. Maybe some don't. But I'm not waiting. Later, Maya climbed the stairs to her room. She placed the letter in a wooden box beside her chess trophies, then opened her window. The stars blinked above, distant and steady. She whispered to the night. Queens don't wait for permission. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like a girl remembering loss. She felt like a young woman defining what comes next. 3 weeks passed since Leon's visit. Life resumed its quiet rhythm chess practice, community center matches, Rachel's workshops, Richard's silent reading in the sunroom. But beneath the calm, something had shifted. Maya moved differently now. Not with fear or hesitation, but with a deeper gravity, as though her name carried more weight and she was learning how to bear it. Then the rumors started. At first, they were whispers on forums. The girl's too good, too fast. Then blog posts with pointed questions. Who trained her? What's her real story? Some hinted that Richard had fabricated Maya's past for publicity. Others speculated about her parentage, her schooling, her convenient rise from obscurity. One article asked outright, is Maya Pierce even who she says she is? Richard brought the article to Rachel and Hayes late one night. His jaw was tight, knuckles white around the printout. This isn't skepticism, it's character assassination. Rachel read the headline aloud. Street prodigy or carefully packaged myth. Wow, subtle. Maya entered the room quietly, having overheard enough. They think I'm fake? Rachel shook her head. They think you're disruptive. Richard stood. We can issue a statement. Shut it down. Maya raised a hand. Number. No? If we defend it, we validate it, she said calmly. I don't owe them my past. I owe them my game. Oh, Hayes, sitting in the corner, murmured. Still, silence can sound like surrender. Maya looked at him. Or strength. The next morning, Maya went to the community center for her regular match night. But the mood was off. Parents hovered closer. A few kids stared a little longer than usual. One boy, 12 or so, sneered as she walked past. My dad says you're just some story Richard Monroe made up, he said. Says you probably don't even know your own dad. Maya stopped, turned to him, eyes steady. You're right, she said quietly. I don't, but I know the value of silence in an endgame. Does your dad? The room went still. The boy blinked, uncertain. Then Maya turned and walked to her table. Later, she found Elijah waiting outside by the bike racks. I read the blogs, he said. It's ugly. I've seen worse. You okay? Maya nodded. Truth doesn't need defending. It needs living. They walked a block in silence. At the corner, Elijah stopped. You know, you don't have to do this alone. Maya smiled. I'm not alone. I just don't need a crowd. Back at Richard's house, an envelope was waiting. No return address, just her name handwritten. Inside was a photocopy of a birth certificate. Her birth certificate. Name, Maya Roslyn Pierce. Mother, Sharon Pierce. Father, name not listed. Beneath the document, a note. People will always try to define you by what's missing. You get to decide what's enough. No signature. Maya stared at it for a long moment, then tucked it into her journal without a word. That night, she dreamed of a chessboard stretching to the horizon, endless, quiet. Her mother stood at one end, not speaking, but watching. Proud. And Maya? She moved the first piece. The next day, she returned to the center. This time, she brought a speech. Before the matches began, she stood at the front of the room and cleared her throat. Some of you may have read things about me, about who I am, about what I'm not. The room hushed. I won't answer those questions, not because I can't, but because I don't need to. I don't play chess to explain myself. I play to express myself. Every match is my story. Every move is my name. If that's not enough, you're not really watching. Then she sat down. The room remained silent for a moment, then a slow clap began at the back. Rachel, then Elijah, then others. By the end, even the boy from the night before joined in, clapping awkwardly, head down. That evening, Richard found Maya sitting under the maple tree in the backyard, looking up at the stars. They'll keep trying, he said softly, to rewrite you. Let them try, she replied. I've already written my opening. He smiled. And your ending? Maya turned to him. Still playing, he chuckled. Good, because the board's still yours. In the distance, the wind stirred, but it wasn't cold. And Maya chess prodigy, street legend, daughter of silence was not afraid. The letter arrived on a Wednesday, tucked between bills and catalogs. Hayes almost didn't notice it, just a plain white envelope, no return address. But the seal on the back caught his eye, a black knight against a golden sun. Subtle, prestigious. He brought it to Maya, who was in the sunroom, replaying a 1985 Kasparov match with a small wooden set on the coffee table. She took the envelope wordlessly, turned it in her hands once, then broke the seal. Inside was a thick, cream-colored card with embossed gold lettering. To Miss Maya Roslyn Pierce, you are hereby invited to participate in the Grandmaster's Invitational at the St. James Chess Club in New York City. This event is a closed exhibition featuring 10 of the world's most promising players under 21. Your inclusion is by unanimous nomination. Travel and lodging provided. We hope to see you across the board. Dr. Alexei Korman, Director. Maya read the words 3 times before speaking. They want me in New York. Rachel looked up from her notebook at the far end of the room. That's not a small ask. It's not a small tournament. Richard appeared in the doorway, towel slung over his shoulder from gardening. What's the timeline? 2 weeks. He gave a low whistle. St. James is legendary. Ivy-covered walls, oil portraits, leather chairs, the whole thing. They think I'm ready? They wouldn't invite you if they didn't. Maya stared at the card. It's more than a match. It's a message. Rachel stood, joining her. Then send one back. The days that followed were a blur of preparation. Maya trained harder, not just on openings and endgames, but stamina back-to-back games, pressure play, psychological tactics. Richard brought in an old friend, a retired grandmaster named Evelyn Chen, who drilled Maya on obscure variations until her fingers ached. You're good, Evelyn said one afternoon, eyes sharp behind thin glasses. But they'll try to rattle you. You've got to hold your center. I will. And you need to let go of being the underdog. That story doesn't serve you anymore. That night, Maya sat with Rachel in the kitchen, nursing a hot mug of chamomile. What if I don't win? Rachel stirred honey into her tea. Then you'll learn. Then you'll try again. Then you'll win later. I want to earn it. You already have. This is just showing your work. When the day came, Richard flew with Maya and Rachel to New York. The city greeted them with noise and motion horns blaring, steam rising from subway grates, 1,000 languages spoken in one block. The St. James Club was tucked away on the Upper West Side, a brownstone with ivy crawling up its face like it had something to say. Inside, everything was hushed, elegance, crown moldings, deep armchairs, rows of leather, bound books. A grandfather clock ticked solemnly in the corner. They checked in. Maya was led to a waiting room with the other players' 9 young men and women, each carrying an air of quiet confidence. Some nodded at her. A few stared a second too long. She didn't flinch. Dr. Corman entered moments later, silver hair combed back, posture like a coiled rook. Welcome, he said. You've each been chosen not just for skill, but for the stories your games tell. Play well, play clean. The first match was scheduled for the next morning. Maya drew black. That night, in the hotel room, she couldn't sleep. She watched the city lights flicker across the ceiling. The traffic below sounded like waves crashing far away. Rachel sat beside her on the bed. You remember your mother's letter? Maya nodded. Good. Because tomorrow, you walk in not as a girl who was found, but as a woman who chose to rise. Maya exhaled. No pressure. Rachel smiled. Just purpose. The next morning, she walked into the St. James Club with her head high. The board was set. Her opponent was a French player named Lucien Bellertal. Neat, icy. He didn't offer a smile, just a slight nod. Maya took her seat, adjusted the clock, touched her pieces once, like greeting old friends. The arbiter announced, Round 1, begin. Lucien opened with a King's Indian attack. Maya countered, calm and measured. Every move was quiet thunder. The room faded, the noise, the weight, the past gone. Just 64 squares, just choices. Midway through the game, Lucien frowned. His tempo slowed. He glanced at Maya, as if seeing her for the first time. 20 moves later, she had his king in a box. Checkmate. No applause, just stunned silence. Maya stood, nodded politely, and walked away. 1 game down, many to go, but in that moment, the room finally saw her not as a rumor, or a story, or an exception. They saw her as a contender, and she was just getting started. The second day of the tournament brought with it a cold rain that painted the streets of Manhattan in long silver strokes. The city outside the St. James Club moved in hurried patterns, umbrellas clashing like shields. Inside, however, the tempo was far more deliberate. Every step, every whisper, calculated. Maya arrived early, headphones in, her breath slow and controlled. Rachel and Richard waited in the lobby, giving her the space she needed, but never straying far. The other players noticed her now, not with idle curiosity, but measured caution. Her match against Lucien had done something. It had silenced a room of doubters. Today's opponent was Vladimir Petrov, a 17-year-old from Belarus known for his aggressive play, and his equally aggressive father coach who hovered nearby, arms folded, eyes sharp. Vladimir wore a tailored navy suit and didn't look up as Maya approached the board. He was already setting his pieces, his fingers twitching like a concert pianist before a performance. Good luck, she said softly, taking her seat. He nodded, barely. The clock began. Vladimir came out swinging a Sicilian defense, but warped, improvised, pushing tempo. He played like a storm, fast and erratic, hoping to unnerve her. But Maya had learned to breathe through chaos. She didn't try to outrun the storm. She anchored herself in it. 15 moves in, Vladimir launched a bishop sacrifice that opened her center. Risky, dangerous, brilliantif, she panicked. She didn't. Instead, she rotated her rook calmly, restructured her pawns, and by move 24, had neutralized his momentum entirely. His frown deepened. His father muttered in Russian from the sidelines and was quickly warned by the arbiter. On move 30, she trapped his queen. Silence. 3 moves later, he tipped his king with a trembling hand. Afterward, he shook her hand, reluctantly. You're better than they said, she smiled gently. They never say enough. Oh. When Maya stepped out into the hallway, she found Richard waiting with a coffee in each hand. He offered one to her, which she took with a grateful nod. You're making them nervous, he said. They should be. He chuckled. You always this sure of yourself? No, she said, but I've stopped needing permission. Rachel joined them as they sat near the fireplace. You've got 2 more matches, one tomorrow, then the final round on Sunday. Who's next? A girl from Brazil, Adriana Valles, 2-time South American champion. Maya nodded. Bring her on. But that night, the rain didn't stop. It deepened, darkened. Thunder rolled across the skyline like distant drums, and with it came something else. Another letter. This one was slid under their hotel suite door. No postage, no envelope, just a folded sheet of printer paper. On it, a printed photo of Maya from her tournament in San Francisco sitting at the board, mid-match. But someone had written across it in red ink. You're not one of them. Stop pretending. Rachel found it first. She stared at it, then cursed under her breath. Richard took it from her, his face unreadable. Maya came out of the bathroom, towel around her neck. What's that? Neither of them answered at first. Then Richard handed her the paper. She looked at it, expression hardening. They're scared, she said. Cowards, more like, Rachel growled. You want to report it? No, Maya said. Maya. I said no, she repeated. I'm not giving this person power. I know who I am, and I'm going to finish what I came here to do. Rachel sat down beside her. You don't have to prove anything, baby. I'm not doing it to prove. I'm doing it because this bored these PCs. They don't lie. They don't care where I'm from. They just reflect truth. And I've got more truth to show. The next morning, the rain broke. Maya faced Adriana under a wide skylight that let sunshine pour onto the board. Adriana played with precision, grace, and a smile that never faded even when Maya began to slowly dismantle her defenses. It was the most beautiful game of the tournament. Move after move, a dance between equals. But Maya had more in her. She saw the pattern by move 22, executed it by move 28. Checkmate on 32. Adriana blinked, then grinned. That was art. You're not so bad yourself, Maya replied. With that victory, Maya secured her seat in the final match. As she walked out of the hall, applause broke out not from the press or the crowd, but from the other players. Quiet, genuine, earned. Outside, the city gleamed. Rachel hugged her tightly. Tomorrow's the last board, Maya nodded. Let's make it matter, because no matter what came next, whispers, threats, praise, or protest, she would always have her truth. And tomorrow, she'd write it move by move. The final day of the Grandmaster's Invitational dawned with an almost unnatural stillness. The air in New York felt suspended, heavy with unspoken anticipation. The city outside the St. James Club moved at its usual chaotic pace, but inside, the rooms were cloaked in a reverent hush. Even the marble floors seemed to echo softer than before. Maya sat at the edge of her bed in the hotel suite, lacing up her sneakers slowly. Her breathing was steady. Her thoughts were focused. Richard stood by the window, sipping tea, scanning that morning's chess column in the Times. Rachel was behind her, braiding Maya's hair with quiet precision. No matter what happens in there today, Rachel said, tying off the braid, you've already become the person you were meant to be. Maya met her eyes in the mirror. That person isn't done yet. Rachel smiled. Then go finish the game. The St. James Club was more crowded than ever. Press lined the back walls. Dignitaries and donors filled the leather chairs, and a camera crew from the International Chess Federation was quietly setting up in the corner. But Maya's focus narrowed the moment she entered the hall. The board was set. Her opponent stood already waiting. Anil Mehra, a calm, composed 19-year-old from Mumbai with a reputation for psychological play and a near-perfect record in blitz tournaments. He greeted her with a short bow. "I've been looking forward to this," he said. Maya offered her hand. "So have I." They sat. The arbiter approached. "Final round. 1 match. Winner takes title. Begin when ready." The clock clicked to life. Anil opened with the Queen's Gambit. Maya didn't blink. She declined not out of fear, but out of strategy. She had studied his games. He expected aggression in return, but she gave him patience. She gave him unpredictability. By move 12, they had deviated from every known line in the book. The audience leaned forward. Anil narrowed his eyes, sensing her rhythm. But Maya wasn't playing just him. She was playing every lesson, every street game, every night she spent in silence with a cracked wooden board on her lap. She was playing her mother's words, her uncle's failures, Richard's belief, Rachel's protection. Every move she made was both defense and declaration. By move 20, the game was even. By move 28, Maya sacrificed a night that sent murmurs through the room. Richard flinched. Rachel's breath caught. Anil smirked, thinking she'd made a mistake. But Maya had seen 2 moves further. 3 moves later, she activated both rooks and split his defense like a wedge through ice. She pressed forward, not rushed, not reckless, relentless, controlled. Anil's confidence began to falter. On move 36, he leaned back, glanced up at her, and then stared at the board like it had betrayed him. Move 37, check. Move 38, forced move. Move 39. Maya paused for just a second, then delivered the final blow. Checkmate. The silence in the room fractured, first a gasp, then a ripple of applause, then it surged into a standing ovation. The arbiter stepped forward, stunned. Winner, Maya Roslyn Pierce. She didn't move at first, just stared at the board. Not because she doubted it, but because she knew what it meant. She looked up slowly, stood, and extended her hand across the board to Anil. He took it. "You earned that." "So did you." Reporters rushed forward, cameras flashing. A woman thrust a mic toward her. "Maya, what do you want to say to the world?" She looked directly into the lens. "I want every kid who's ever been told they don't belong to know the board doesn't care where you come from, only how you play. And we're here, and we're not waiting anymore." Applause broke out again. Richard watched from the corner, his eyes misted but proud. Rachel cried openly now, clapping with both hands over her heart. The awards were given, speeches were made, photos were taken, but Maya stayed centered, calm. She wasn't overwhelmed, she was anchored. Hours later, after the hall had emptied and the cameras were packed away, she stood alone in the club library. The chessboard was still set. Rachel entered quietly. "You didn't have to stay. I wanted to say thank you," Maya said. "To who?" She glanced around. "To the silence. To the years I thought none of this would happen. To the wait. And to the game that never judged me." Rachel stepped beside her. "What's next?" Maya smiled. "I don't know, but I know how I'll walk into it." And how's that?" "Like a queen," Maya said, placing her hand gently on the white queen and whispering, "No permission needed." Outside, the sky was dark now, but clear. And Maya Roslyn Pierce, champion of silence, daughter of grace, stood ready not just for what the world would give her but for what she would demand in return. It was the morning after the final match. New York felt different, lighter, almost reverent. The streets still bustled, taxis still honked, and the sky still loomed tall over glass towers. But to Maya, everything moved with a slower grace, like the world had tilted just slightly in her favor. In the hotel room, she woke early, sunlight brushing against her cheek. Her trophy sat on the dresser, catching the light, a quiet witness to all she had carried. Beside it was her mother's letter, still folded, the corners soft from being opened so many times. Maya ran a finger across the words. "Queens don't wait for permission." Downstairs, Rachel was sipping coffee in the breakfast lounge. She looked up as Maya entered and gave a proud, tired smile. "Well, look who's royalty now." Maya grinned. "Is it too early to say I'm tired of being celebrated?" Richard joined them moments later with a fresh newspaper in hand. The front page bore her name in bold print. "Street prodigy to champion. Maya Pierce conquers the Grandmasters." He laid it on the table. "Not bad for a week's work." Maya glanced at the headline, then away. "Feels weird seeing it written like that." "You'll get used to it," Rachel said. "Or not. Either way, it won't change what you did." That afternoon, they boarded a flight back to California. No press, no cameras, just family and the comfort of retreating to the quiet. As the plane ascended, Maya leaned her head against the window, watching the city shrink into patterns. She thought of every person she had met: Elijah's quiet challenge, Adriana's grace, Anil's steel composure. She didn't feel like she'd beaten them. She felt like she'd learned from them. Back home, the garden had bloomed early. Spring crept in with shy blossoms and warm air. Hayes met them at the door with a rare, beaming smile. "Got a new board set up for you," he said. "Your fan mail's already a small mountain." They all laughed, even as Maya's cheeks turned red. The days that followed were full but peaceful. Maya visited the community center where kids had started mimicking her moves in their after-school games. They called her Coach Queen, and she didn't bother correcting them. Rachel's workshops were suddenly overflowing. Parents who had once glanced nervously at Maya now asked her for advice. A few even admitted their doubts, offering clumsy apologies that she accepted with quiet dignity. And then, on a quiet Thursday evening, a letter arrived. It wasn't an invitation this time. It was a proposal from the U.S. Chess Federation. They wanted her to join their National Youth Mentorship Board, not just as a figurehead, but as a leader, a voice, someone who could advocate for marginalized communities, help shape accessibility programs, and design regional tournaments for underserved kids. Maya held the letter in her hands, heart beating steadily. "They're giving you a seat at the table," Richard said. "Not because of charity, but because you earned it." Maya nodded. "And I'm going to bring more chairs." She accepted. Weeks turned to months. Maya traveled more, not to compete, but to speak, to listen. She visited high schools in Detroit, community halls in Atlanta, chess clubs in Oakland. She heard stories like hers of loss, of struggle, of brilliance buried under hardship, and every time, she reminded them, "The board is yours, all 64 squares. Don't ask, take it." Back in Palo Alto, one evening in May, Maya sat under the maple tree in the backyard. The sun had just dipped below the hills. Rachel brought out 2 cups of tea and sat beside her. "You miss it?" Rachel asked. "The big matches, the pressure?" Maya smiled softly. "Sometimes, but this matters more." Rachel studied her. "You're not that little girl anymore." "No," Maya said. "I'm the girl who remembers her, and I honor her by walking forward." She reached into her pocket and pulled out her mother's letter, now laminated, worn at the folds, but whole. She read it aloud one more time, her voice strong, steady. When she finished, Rachel placed a hand on her shoulder. She'd be proud. Maya looked at the stars overhead. She already was. That night, Maya began writing a letter of her own. It started like this: "To the next girl who thinks no one sees her, because Maya Rosalind Pierce knew better than most. Queens don't wait for permission. They rise. They claim space. They change the game.